Boy, that was fast. Oklahoma wrapped things up very quickly with a guy that most realized was going to wind up being a Sooner pretty immediately upon hitting the portal. But even so, you see a process come full circle, cover to cover in the span of less than 24 hours. Incredible job by the Oklahoma staff and front office, most specifically general manager Jim Naggie, as OU wraps up the portal recruitment of Cal transfer running back Jaydn Ott, whom they welcome to the fold with 1 year of eligibility left. Parker Thune alongside Brandon Drum, wearing green in honor of all the money that Oklahoma is apparently willing to spend in this spring portal cycle to make sure that they shore up any and all weaknesses on this roster. It's unfortunate, Brandon, that Jake Michael's addition kind of got buried in the news
Oh, it did,
cycle
yeah.
by the pickup of Jaden Ott. The Sooners did also get Jake Michael, the experienced transfer offensive lineman from Stanford, who's made 16 career starts at left guard, center, and right guard. So a lot of versatility there. Another interior piece that Bill Bedenbaugh can toy with. But the news of the day is the addition of Jaden Ott, Brandon, a guy who, though he battled through some injuries in 2024, he's only 1 year removed from a season that cemented him as one of the top backs in college football. 1,305 yards in 2023, 12 touchdown runs, averaged 5.3 yards per carry. When healthy, this dude is a monster. And it's one thing to do it in the Pac 12, it's another thing to do that in the SEC. Be that as it may, there are so many reasons for Oklahoma fans to be excited about what they're getting in Jaydn Ott.
Yeah, you lose Sam Franklin, right? You gain Jaden Ott. And I think Oklahoma will take that. The scales tipped in Oklahoma's favor, and
Come out on the winning end of that transaction.
yes, you did. Yes, you did. But I mean, I look at it like this. We talked about it on the podcast yesterday. Like this is a massive get for Oklahoma in so many ways. Um, you got depth now at running back. That was a question outside of the two guys that are going to play this year in Xavier Robinson and Gavin Sawchuk. Now you've added Jaden Ott to that mix. Between, and let's be honest, between Jaden Ott and Gavin Sawchuk, their 2023 seasons were chef's kiss, both of them. And just really, really good players, right? Like one was almost, I think, 800 yards in 6 games, and the other one ran for 1,300 yards in 13 games. So, like, both of them balled out in 2023. Both of them were injury plagued in 2024. 2022, Jaden also had almost 900 yards. He came onto the scene similarly the way that Gavin Sawchuk did in 2023, where it wasn't just bursting onto the scene. It was a progression to where he was just hot at the end of the year and it really took fire and it rolled over into 2023 where he was healthy. Um, if those three backs stay healthy, this, and I know we're leaving out Javante Barnes. You just can't guarantee he's going to stay healthy enough to play. I think, and I was talking to a source just a second ago, like Javante Barnes, Parker, has been soft tissue, has been like major injuries, right? With
Mhm.
surgeries. Whereas Sawchuk has been the hamstring, right? It's just what's held him has pulled hamstring, what sprinters have. Same thing with Xavier Robinson and just kind of sprained shoulder every now and then or whatever. Um, and a hamstring with him as well. But those three right there, man, you're looking good in the
Yes, you
running
are.
back room. Yes, you have Javante Barnes still there. That's a question mark. Taylor Tatum, question mark. How much is he going to mature? But you have a trio of backs that are SEC ready. That is, if you're an OU fan, you've got to look at that and go, finally,
And Jade
finally.
and Jaden Ott, Brandon, is a complete running back. Dangerous
Yes.
as a rusher, dangerous as a receiver, even dangerous as a returner. If we look back at his career at Cal and some of the stuff he's done in the return game, he can contribute in every facet of the game that you expect a running back to be able to contribute in. And it's been a while since Oklahoma had a true three down running back. Look, Javante Barnes has that potential. Gavin Sawchuk has that potential. Xavier Robinson has that potential. But Jaden Ott has demonstrated at the collegiate level that he is a three down type of running back, somebody that never has to come off the field. So I think immediately he becomes for all intents and purposes, the leader in the clubhouse for RB1 duties. Now, naturally, as we've seen in the past with Oklahoma, they're going to operate with something of a committee approach. But it would be surprising, I think, at this point, just knowing what we know now of that running back room, if Jaydn Ott didn't get the first crack to be the bell cow and inherit the majority of the carries. There will be some quarterback run game with John Mateer, but we know Oklahoma wants to run the football. We know Ben Arbuckle wants to run the football. You have to run the football effectively in the SEC, and Jaydn Ott provides such a weapon in that department. Between Mateer and Ott, Brandon, I hardly think there is a program in America that has made more impactful additions at quarterback and running back this offseason than Oklahoma.
What team did that last year? This is the easiest answer in the world. What team added?
Ohio State did.
There you go. And am I saying OU is going to be up for the national? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying when you get good additions, and remember, they had Trayvon Henderson coming back,
Mhm.
right? And they did a really good job of splitting those guys up and giving them carries. And I think that's what you're going. And remember, Will Howard was had a very similar skill set to a John Mateer, where he ran for a lot of yards at Kansas State, right? That's what he did. He ran the ball, he threw the ball. And true dual threat, true power dual threat, much like John Mateer. And I think you look at that, and that's what you're aiming to be if you're Oklahoma. Can you get a Jaden Ott, Gavin Sawchuk, a Jaydn Ott, Xavier Robinson? Can you get two of those three to really ball, or all three? Can all three be 700 yard, 800 yard guys at the end of the year and be what Oklahoma used to be? Remember under Lincoln Riley, I know people don't like to do that. Remember Lincoln Riley, they would have 1,000 yard rushing for a quarterback and then two of them at running back. And there was never an issue with it. And they would also throw for 4,000 yards. It's possible. Yes, you're in the SEC, a lot harder to do that in the SEC. Totally understand. But if you can break that down and marginalize it to, 750, 700 apiece, right? Maybe Mateer runs for 500 and the three running backs go for 700 or 600 apiece. That is an amazing year for all of them, everybody. And you're going to win a lot of ball games, Parker, doing that. A lot of ball games. That's what you got to. It all ends up like how good these running backs are goes back to how good is the offensive line going to be. And to that, they added a piece there in Michaela, right? Depth. That was what was missing last year was depth. There's no such thing missing now. There's no excuse. There's no excuse anymore, Parker.
Let's talk about the process of Jaydn Ott winding up at Oklahoma, because again, it was an accelerated one. And this, folks, is one of the many reasons why you tap in with us at OUinsider.com, why that subscription for just a few bucks every month is going to be more than worth your while, because our members knew what was coming. They knew even before Jaydn Ott was in the portal, Oklahoma has their eyes on a high caliber running back from the
Right.
P4 ranks that is going to be entering the transfer portal, even though he is not already in there. As soon as Jaydn Ott hit the portal, let our members know, yep, that's the guy for Oklahoma. Expect this thing to come together. Lo and behold, it does within the span of a day. But we got you covered. We keep you a step ahead of all things football and basketball portal this time of year and year round with team notes, recruiting notes, and the like. So, shameless plug right there. OU Insider is the place to be right about now. However, Brandon, you see in the addition of Jaydn Ott why Oklahoma hired Jim Naggie. This is somebody that has relationships with every single agent in the business.
Hmm.
And so it's not hard to figure with how quickly this came together. I mean, fastest turnaround, even including John Mateer, fastest turnaround from portal entry to commitment that OU has ever been a part of.
Yeah,
And so it's not hard to figure how this all came together behind the scenes.
it is
That's
not.
Jim Naggie.
Yes. He is you remember all the big he had Josh Pate talking, and people, I remember Josh Pate came out and talked about how big of a hire Jim Naggie was. And you had people across the board saying, yeah, it's a huge hire, but it's at Oklahoma. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. And from the get-go, all he's done is made boss move after boss move. And you're seeing it right here, right now, in person. I, Oklahoma's not done. They are not done. This is just the beginning. It is going to be very interesting. I talked to somebody yesterday and I said, how do you think this spring portal is going to end up? And I quote, we've never been more confident because of who's running it. Never been more confident because of who's running it. They feel so good about how they're going to attack this portal. You can tell there's a plan in place, and that's how they're going to build the roster. Jim Naggie, is he is that the biggest move Oklahoma's had in the last 3 or 4 years? Period across the athletic department.
Let's have that conversation after the 2025 season is over. If we see, especially if we see some of the additions from the spring portal cycle, i.e., Jaden Ott, significantly contribute to a rebound season for Oklahoma, a season that includes 9, 10, 11 wins in 2025, then that's definitely a conversation we're having.
Fair. Yeah, fair. Fair.
Because this is the type of pickup, Brandon, that drastically increases your bottom line as a football program and just creates so many more headaches for opposing defensive coordinators across the SEC because now you got to deal with that guy in addition to John Mateer, in addition to everything Oklahoma's going to be able to roll out in that wide receiver room, assuming they're healthy. Now you have to deal with a guy that, when healthy, is one of the best running backs in college football. There's major promise going into 2025 at this point for Oklahoma, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And nobody's smiling bigger tonight than Ben Arbuckle because his job just got a lot easier. When you add a dude like that to the backfield contingent as an offensive coordinator, you are chomping at the bit for the season to get here.
Very much so. I mean, you look at just how different the roster is in general from this year to last year. It's night and day. It is night and day. And I know that Jim Nagy just got to Oklahoma and he hasn't been a huge part of that just yet, but I think the additions that he could potentially make over the next 10 days can be like, what do you think the number of wins, how much of a difference do you think these moves can make for Oklahoma? I think that's a really good question, actually. The transfer portal moves.
Well, it's just, yeah, okay. It's a good question, but I think it's going to be impossible to gauge, you know, because there's so much that has already changed this offseason that, will we really be able to know in hindsight when we look at the 2025 season how many more wins Oklahoma got based on the spring portal additions versus what they added before Jim Naggie got to town, i.e., John Mateer, Giovanni Gibson, and company?
Mm.
So at this point, what you're trying to do, if you're Jim Naggie, is make sure that you have every little weakness, every little vulnerability on your roster dealt with.
Mhm.
The predicament at running back was you got guys that are talented, you got guys that have high ceilings, but they don't have a ton of consistency on their respective resumes, or they just don't have long resumes, period. Bring in somebody that you can absolutely count on to tote the rock 25 times a game if need be in Jaydn Ott. That's probably not what he's going to be asked to do, but he's capable of that. We need to see Oklahoma add another cornerback, which they're going to do. We need to see Oklahoma add another wide receiver and another tight end, which they're going to do. Those feel like the legit needs. And then at that point, you're looking for luxuries. You're looking for every little thing here and there, maybe another linebacker, maybe another defensive lineman. Anything that you feel like, any room that you feel like could be improved, even by just a little bit, with what's available in the portal, that's what you go for.
And it's unfortunate that Demarion Thomas played at Vanderbilt because I was looking at it, grad transfer or not. Like you can't go SEC, and I thought you could. I thought grad transfers that was the one way you could do it. But looking at it, it's just across the board. You can't do it. That would have been a huge move for Oklahoma there. Michaela, what fans are going to ask? Is he going to be able to compete?
Yes, I expect him to. I expect him to compete for that starting center job with Troy Everett. I
Uh,
think he provides a legit competitive push there at center because he's bigger, he's longer. They have relatively equal amounts of experience. But yeah, I expect Michael to come in and immediately challenge for a starting job. And you know what? Even if he doesn't earn the starting job, Brandon, I think what 2024 proved is that you want to have somebody ready to go off that bench if you need him, particularly a guy that can play multiple positions on that interior so that you don't feel strained if you experience an injury or two.
this
You
frees
have
up.
somebody that's played at a high level, that's played power four football, that's ready to jump right into the fray and is going to give you quality snaps.
Yeah, it frees up Fabichi Iwewu too. Like
Yeah.
he's been the one that's been backing up the center spot. They've been working him there. Now he gets to just focus on being the right or left guard, depending on how they want to play that out. But this is two of the bigger additions that Oklahoma's gotten in the portal, just because of their experience and their production. Like Michael has been a good offensive lineman at
Mm-hmm.
Stanford. Jaydn Ott has been a superb running back at Cal. And I know everybody's going to look back, well, they haven't done it against competition that they're going to play against in the SEC. That's
Sure.
fair. But they likely can. Neither has John Mateer, and everybody's touting him as a potential Heisman candidate. So you can't have it one way and not the other, right? Like you have to give grace both ways and assume that their production is their production, and that's the way it is. Either way, the roster is better. It's significantly better today than it was April 14th.
And the hope and the expectation among Oklahoma fans is that with Jim Naggie running the show in the transfer portal, it's going to continue to get better over the next week and change. We will have it all covered for you over at ouinsider.com. News, notes, insider information, the whole 9 yards. Again, if you're not subscribed, it is well worth it. Do us a favor, definitely subscribe to this YouTube channel. That doesn't cost you anything. You won't get as much of the good stuff, but it is a real good surface level way to just keep up with everything we're doing. Subscribe to the YouTube. We'd appreciate that very much. And we hope to see you on the other side over at ouinsider.com. For Brandon Drum, I am Parker Thune. Jaden Ott is a Sooner. And we'll talk about that and much more in even greater detail later this week on our next episode of the Under the Visor podcast. Everybody take it easy.